Hi, it's Dave from Telescribe and Nothing Gain. With me today, of course, is Kirk Houghton from Screen Blaster B and Andy Edwards from Nomadic Rain, and you're watching the A.D.K Rock and Metal channel. Okay, we are back. We are doing another one of our retrospective album reviews where we go back in time and we check out let's do my Wayne's World bit. And we go and check out an album from back in history. And so today's one is a 35-year-old album. It is 1990's Beg to Differ by the band Prong. And I'm going to hand it over to Kirk, who's going to give us a bit of background on this album.
New York metal heroes Prong made their major label debut on the 12th of March 1990 with the release of their Beg to Differ album. Signed to Epic Records at the turn of the new decade, the underground and a receptive press touted them as the future of metal. A departure from the hardcore infused metal of their first two records, Beg to Differ represents a turning point for Prong. Gone were the grit and guts and rough edges of punk, and in came the sharp, technical rhythms of thrash metal. The band received heavy rotation from MTV with the video single Beg to Differ being a staple on Headbangers Ball, and the song Lost and Found going on to form the theme tune for that show for a large part of the 1990s. Critics at the time warmed to the muscular and precise thrash metal of Beg to Differ, but its impact is better understood from the present day. One question is now pertinent. Is this the first ever groove metal album? It predated Pantera's Cowboys from Hell, and it has the riffs that would go on to influence a whole wave of hardcore and metal bands in the decade ahead, not least Stuck Mojo and Korn. Though not a hit record or anywhere near a commercial success, the band would win a cult following by playing 176 shows in 1990, including dates with Voivod and Soundgarden. Metal fans in the UK will also remember them as the main support for Faith No More's legendary UK tour of that year. Prong are the notorious example of an underrated band in metal, and they would go on to release another seminal album in 1994 with the industrial groove metal LP Cleansing. But Beg to Differ is the record that put them in the top tier of metal innovation in the 1990s.
Yeah, I'll just say why I chose this record and then hand it
Oh, that's a good idea, yeah. You picked this one.
Yeah, no, to me, there's two classic albums in the Prong discography. 1990's Beg to Differ, and then the one most people are familiar with, 1994's Cleansing album, which really is a landmark in thrash and industrial metal. But to me, this is the one. I remember seeing it in Affleck's Palace in Manchester, and I was listening to a lot of thrash at the time, so I would have been 17. And I knew of Snap Your Fingers, Snap Your Neck, and the guitar tone, and I knew that Tommy Victor was this great riff lord even then. And when I bought the album, riff beast, riff lord. When I bought the album, it blew me away because I was playing guitar at the time, and as soon as I heard the riffs on here, I was thinking, shit, how do I get to this standard of imagination, especially when you're playing within a thrash metal framework. So that's why I got into it, and clearly I'm very enthusiastic about this. Andy, Dave was saying that I shouldn't have given you this as the album to listen to. I disagree because it's a thrash metal album. What are the standout songs for you on this, or is there anything you want to say before we even go into that?
Band I've never heard before, apart from, I think we covered Snap Your Fingers, Snap Your Neck on the channel, didn't we? I can't remember what my thoughts were on that, but it's a band, it's one of them bands that everyone knows and heard of, but I've never really listened to them. I think it's again, it's the name, isn't it? I like their symbol. They've got a great symbol, but you know, one syllable band name doesn't grab you as a sort of young metal fan trying to discover new music. So I never got into Prong. What are we doing? Best tracks? Is that what you said?
I would say, yeah. Well, I mean, choose two that stand out for you on this record.
I can't split between three, to be honest. I mean, you say it's a thrash album. I didn't think so. There's thrash elements, lots of thrash elements, but they're trying something different. I know it's sort of in the embryo stages of thrash metal sort of breaking through, but you know they're trying something different. Would this be classed as avant-garde back in the day? That was a term used in the 90s, wasn't it, for something that didn't neatly sit into the categories and the genres. But my tracks are the opener, for dear life. It has sort of like a non-standard or unusual sort of time signature. Really good solo, and of course you've got a cowbell halfway through. That's always gonna have earn points for me. The title track's another really good one. I like the sort of staccato percussive riffs in this one, and the chuggy riffs that sort of form the majority of the song. And Take It in Hand is my other one. Again, another great opening riff. It's the one that, for me, that does sit neatly in the thrash metal genre. You can hear the sort of Bay Area influences from the 90s in this track, and it's more akin to the likes of those bands. Fast tempo, got the gang vocals as well, so they're my three, and pinch harmonics as well, which are used throughout the album, but a lot in this particular track. So they're my three.
Dave, what stood out for you?
So I had two tracks that stood out. The most obvious one for me would be the title track for the album, Beg to Differ. For me, this is the only song on this album that starts to sound like what later Prong would be. It's got the punchy grooves, it's got the attitude that you expect, it's got the headbanging, a bit of a longer intro. It has almost a Biohazard feel on the riff, and there's multiple times throughout this album where I've kept going, this feels like Biohazard, Urban Discipline Era. Now that obviously came out later than this, a couple of years afterwards. Well, that made me go, right, well, this has got, rather than thrash, although there are thrash elements in a lot of the riffs, this feels more punk and hardcore elements to this. This is what this band at this point feels. This doesn't feel... It's punk and hardcore with a bit of thrash crossover thrown in, but the thrash itself isn't great. And I'm going to talk about that in my highs and lows when I come to that. But Beg to Differ sounds like what you would expect on when you start talking about later albums like Cleansing. You can hear the DNA that's going to go into that album on Beg to Differ. I also like how there's a pre-chorus that adds tension and atmosphere before you get into the chorus. It's a great build to where you're going with it, which you don't get on many of the other songs. The other song, though, I would say I really liked was Your Fear. I like that dark, clean, melodic guitar line. It's played in minors. It doesn't sound like it's playing in majors. So he knows he's not working. If he just put that up by half a key into majors, it wouldn't sound right. So I love the fact he's in minors there. We've got these kind of almost progressive drum patterns rather than sort of straight on the sort of standardized thrash or rock. And then once the vocals all coming in, the guitars change, it feels like a more complete and a bit of a kind of Killing Joke vibe I kind of picked up at that point. And I also liked the harmonized vocals over the chorus. I thought they were quite interesting as well that he put in there. So they were my two.
Yeah, I'll go straight in with the title track, and you have identified what is the unique part of this album. They're basically bringing Killing Joke into thrash metal, and their origins are hardcore and crossover, aren't they, punk? So that is coming through, Andy. I wouldn't quite call it avant-garde. I don't think there's anything that's radical, but they are. I think the flavors are themselves slightly unusual. So it's the songs aren't long enough to be prog, but you're right. Ted Parsons at times is playing it like a prog drummer, but as I said in the intro video, is this the first groove metal album? Well, let's go. My two songs. First of all, well, three songs. Track number 2, Steady Decline. Exquisite riff in the intro. It's like this circular alt picking technique that many guitarists today will rip off. I'm not saying it is from Tommy Victor, but even Hetfield's not doing riffs like this. And listen how Ted Parsons on drums comes in with a breakbeat. That's unique straight away. I don't think any thrash band have even looked at it like that. Maybe you could argue that Ministry song, I know they're industrial, that song Thieves does something similar to a thrash riff, and that's a year before. But I just love the high treble crunch of Tommy's guitar as well. The chorus here in track number 2 is not as imaginative as the guitar work. Simple gang chant of the song title of the chorus. They do that too many times, unfortunately, don't they? But put that to one side and you cannot believe, I could not believe when I heard it, that a trio of musicians can write and perform music to this level of rhythmic prowess. This is a band who come from the hardcore scene, and somehow they've ended up being the tightest rhythmic band, arguably in metal around this time. And you can hear there's something different about them compared to the third wave of thrash. You know, bands like Sacred Right, Zentrix, they're quite far away from them. And to the point where, Andy, you even said, I don't see this as a thrash album. I think that's an interesting point, isn't it? That we're coming at this from different perspectives. But yeah, Beg to Differ, iconic song, Prong anthem. You're right, Dave. This we don't know it at the time in 1990, but this gives us an idea where they're going. The riffing in the intro is stupendous. I love how he's using those decapitated power chords in the middle of his fretboard. You know, just like two-string power chords, and he's putting them in amongst the low E. Fantastic. And how cool is the syncopation when the beat kicks in? And you'd even call the next section in the intro now would be called a breakdown riff. But he's using it, Tommy, as a transition to riff number 3. So we're already 3 riffs in before we get to the verse. And to me, they're all gold standard. And it is the first time we're hearing a motive side to the band. That excellent bridge that you said there, Dave, you're right. It's like a lament, isn't it, with a spoken word backing vocal. And you can also tell, though, that Ted Parsons is a fan of dub music, because I am going to have to mention him, Faith No More, Mike Borden. He's doing something similar on The Real Thing. No, he is. He's hearing a thrash riff or something very fast and not doing the Dave Lombardo or Laws. He's going in and trying to, I don't know if he's trying to do something different. He's just playing what he hears in his head, and it's really interesting. And Tommy's slide technique on the guitar between the chords is very difficult, you know, to do that, like do and sing at the same time. So yeah, love that song, love the drum engineer in it. And third one I'll pick up again, what Andy said, yeah, track number 6, side B, Take It in Hand. The question I always say, can the riffing in the intro match Battery by Metallica and Holy Wars by Megadeth? Yes, it can. When I heard this, I was blown away. Even now, those pinch harmonics and that really vicious alternate palm muting, you can hear the plectrums really scraping the strings, but the extended riffs as well, aren't they? And I was, when I heard that, and I was writing songs on my 4-track recorder at the time, I was like, I just want my riffs to sound like Prong, you know, as sharp as these, with that high treble setting in the mix. And even I've got to say, the guitar tone on that song, it is so difficult to catch something as clean yet brutal, and done a great job here. It really stands out. Ted Parsons again avoids the obvious fast tempo, doesn't he, for the first 50 seconds. And last point I'm going to make about this song, Take It in Hand. Fans of Take No Prisoners by Megadeth are missing out if they don't know this song. I would put it in a similar category to that, but I prefer the vocals of Tommy Victor here than Dave Mustaine's. But this is a real high point of technical thrash metal for me, and they've got grooves in there which other bands don't have. So I think let's go round the table again. Andy, we've talked about favourite songs. What are some of your high points and low points that you noted down for Beg to Differ?
High points are obviously the riffs for me. They're not standard. They build in the songs. You mentioned a moment ago that there's sort of 3 really good riffs before the verse kicks in. So Tommy Victor, I just think is extremely talented, because I assume, well, live I assume he plays and sings. I think that's probably true to say. Imaginative hooky riff, as I said, and it's offering something different. There are different vocal techniques. You know, throughout the album, you can hear the influences and the different styles they're putting into the songs. I mean, in particular, Prime Cut has sort of layered vocals, and then the next one just the same. It's a slightly different vocal delivery again. So they're trying to keep it interesting. They're not as I say, they're not standard tempos, not standard song structures, not your usual riffs. They're doing something different, and it's really imaginative songwriting. Not really many low points. I think the instrumental, although it's got a really sort of clever title, just seems a bit of a filler and almost like an unfinished song, which they can't, create into a full song with vocals and lyrics and everything. So, yeah, they're my highs and lows.
Dave, first time you've listened to it all the way through when I chose it, I assume. So, I don't know how many times you've listened to it as part of preparation for this. What stands out for you, and are there things that are there that are weaknesses that they could have done better?
So this is where I wish I didn't know Cleansing and Rude Awakening.
Right, yeah, because they are groove.
This is the problem. If I didn't know what this band would become, I might enjoy this album. And this is the thing, I knew the song Beg to Differ, but I hadn't heard the whole album. So I didn't own it. I had Cleansing, I had Rude Awakening, Scorpio Rising. I've got every album since Cleansing, but I haven't got Force Fed or Beg to Differ. So I haven't got the earlier stuff. So when I got to this, and I'm like, okay, it's generic thrash riffs. It's 1990. You're playing riffs that sound like 1986 Anthrax.
Good comparison. Yeah, I would say at the Big Four, Anthrax have the biggest presence.
I'm like, okay, show me some originality, Tommy. Because I know what you become on Cleansing, and I know the riffs that you deliver there, and the songwriting, and how I was so surprised by the amount of thrash riffs on this album.
So just to clarify, you do see it as a thrash album, don't you?
I mean, probably at least half the songs have got notes of thrash in there, and the rest of them have got notes of hardcore in there. But what I don't, when I listen to later Prong albums, I don't use those references. They just, to me, they sound like Prong. Prong has their own identity by later albums, but at this point, all I hear are the DNA of other bands. And so this feels like an experimental album where they're finding their feet. And to me, that's a low point for me, listening to this going, because I know the later albums, I found it really difficult to find something that I really liked about this album. But I have to think about if back in the day this would have been quite interesting for the people that were into thrash in 1990 to get this hardcore element being blended, because not many people, I mean, if you were probably doing it anyway, you might have been, Suicidal Tendencies would have been doing some crossover stuff at the time, would have been your main comparison of trying to do something crossover wise. But yeah, real challenge. I agree. Intermenstrual DB. What the fuck is that point of that instrumental? I mean, it's self-indulgent. It's even indulgent by today's standards. So I don't understand the point of having an instrumental track on the album. It's not even a palate cleanser. So that's probably my lowest point on there. The rest of it, I mean, there's probably nice bits that pick out of each song. But again, like when we did the Silverchair review, I can hear so many of the contemporaries that are in there because I know Cleansing and I know Rude Awakening. I mean, Rude Awakening is my favourite probably out of all the albums. Rude Awakening does not sound, this could be, apart from knowing Tommy Victor's vocals, they don't sound like the same band to me. But yeah, I can't really pinpoint it down for you on that one.
No, it's interesting. It's interesting you mentioned, a lot of the riffs sound like 1986 Anthrax. I'm not hearing that. I'm hearing, as a high point, this band sort of creating their own sound. And as I said at the outset, they're different. You've obviously seen a progression from this to what they would become, where they are standing alone in their field, as it were. Rather than sort of being influenced by the bands and the contemporaries at the time. So it's interesting. We've both got these different views, but one from somebody who's a fan against someone who's never really listened to the band at all.
Yeah, I mean, you both raised some really interesting observations there. Let's start. Dave, you said one of your favourite songs is track number 5, Your Fear. I think that's the part of the album where this is not just a thrash album, and that Killing Joke are a serious influence on this music. And I mean the guitar work of Jody Walker, those atonal weird chords that he's playing.
Yeah.
Tommy's starting to put them in, but he's still using Megadeth and Metallica riffs in between, and Anthrax as well. No one's doing that in 1990. And because no one's mixing that chunky metallic riff with the Killing Joke. And then, like you said, they do come from a hardcore, certainly crossover background. Suicidal Tendencies would have been your main comparison point in 1990, both of them on a major label by this point. But it is unprecedented what they're doing with that Killing Joke angle if you discount the way Faith No More are approaching it from their weird, unorthodox, multi-genre angle, because they love Killing Joke as well. But what I think is unique about this album, the air guitar is never far away because the riffs are like gold. They're just incredible. But you also feel like you're gathering your tools for a drive-by shooting of a rival gang. It does have that edge to it, that street grit. It does, doesn't it? Like, you know, when you look at thrash metal in the 80s, like we did Destruction, Satan, murder, lust, death, you know, Slayer are doing it, Possessed. You've got that occult side, haven't you? Here, this is just the streets. I mean, even track number 1, he's criticizing the flag of free enterprise and how free market economics can lead to the death of the soul of a nation and society. You know, if we are just motivated by pure profit and market forces. So it's really, if you compare this with 5 years ago, Destruction and what they're singing about, and Slayer, this is miles away, even on that level, isn't it? But yeah, the high points. This is a riff album, isn't it? That is what this album is. You need your metal albums where the air guitar comes out. I really struggle to find another metal album that's this standard for the riffing. I disagree with you, Dave. I don't think there's anything derivative what they're doing here. Yes, the Anthrax and Metallica are an influence, but the way he's using pinch harmonics in 1990, again, no one other than Dimebag is doing this. And Tommy Victor he's the pinch harmonic king for me. So the other thing, Dave, second thing, high point, the groove is unique. Not like Pantera in the way they approach this aspect of their music. Ted Parsons he used to drum in Swans, for God's sake, you know, that dark industrial band that transitioned into a weird post-rock folk group. So, and Godflesh are an influence as well, because that album comes out in 1989. They're big fans of that. They're always wearing a Godflesh t-shirt around this time, the band Prong. And then, yeah, bringing in that atonality of Killing Joke, really unique. Look, weaknesses, repeating the song title for the chorus as a gang vocal. Lost and found, steady, decline. It's like, we always said that, haven't we, about Prong. Whatever you see on the back of the vinyl or the CD for the title is going to be the chorus. Like AC/DC.
Isn't that Biohazard's way as well, isn't it?
Exactly, yeah. It's just like, oh, for God's sake. Yeah. And then finally, I think Tommy's voice. Why wasn't this a hit record? It's on a major label. Even, you know, Kirk Hammett's on record saying these are the future of metal. Doesn't shift anywhere near what they're expecting. Doesn't even chart, does it? And I think that's because there's no charm to Tommy's voice. When you look at bands that have taken off, he's not in that league with them, is he? You know, like Mike Patton, Faith No More, what he's doing with The Real Thing. Even James Hetfield on and Justice for All, he's expanding his voice, isn't he? You know, like One, you know, the folk singing. There's just not really much charm here. It's a riff album, and the riffs are so good you can overlook some of that. And Andy said, he's right, that they are still trying to experiment though. This is like they're trying to figure out, how do we use harmonies? We're only a 3-piece. What can we do as backing vocals? And there's some stunning successes like Beg to Differ, that bridge, So Fall in Line. It is surprisingly emotive, that. But I just think the chorus is not got enough to grab you in, you know, but fortunately the riffs make up for it. But I think we should briefly touch on it because, Andy, you're the only one to mention it. Track number 1, let's go to you, Dave. For Dear Life, 3 minutes 26. Surely this is just a thrash metal song, isn't it? Despite the cowbell in the middle 8.
Yeah, I mean, that's literally what I wrote about this song, was it's a thrash metal song. But to me, it's the riffs. So when I listened to this, I was just going, this just sounds like mid-80s thrash metal to me. It didn't. I also wrote here, for 1990, this already feels dated in thrash metal for me. Because it doesn't have as much of the other elements you talk about. This is just a thrash song, and I'm like, if we weren't talking about Prong, and someone, this was a band name that we'd never heard of, I'd be like, it's just someone who knows how to play Metallica type riffs. It makes me think of like if me learning how to play guitar and writing a song I would use the bands around me, Megadeth, Anthrax, Metallica, etc. You talk about the big fours of thrash, and this would be my attempt at writing a thrash song. It's one of the reasons why it wasn't in there. It just went, it's a generic thrash track for me. Sorry.
No, I agree. I think it doesn't stand out for me. I'm surprised they put this on track 1. You get no counting from the drummer. You just go straight into the riff, which in itself is a statement of intent. But you do know within 10 seconds, this is a thrash metal song, don't you? It can't really go anywhere else. But you do also learn that Prong are riff slingers, aren't they? I mean, you don't even get anywhere near the vocals for the first 45 seconds because they're just like, right, we're going to pummel you with 3 different riffs. And the guitar tone gets it over the line. Crunchy, heavy. He goes heavy on the down picking. It's like a mid-tempo version of Metallica a year before the Black Album, really, isn't it? It doesn't quite have the same weight. But I do like Tommy Victor's use of the chords to mirror the phrasing of his vocal lines in the chorus. For dear life, for dear life. And he adds that extra beat in, Andy, that you mentioned, holding on for dear life. And you get that extra, dun, 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 dun. So that's quite clever. And yeah, seldom do we ever hear a cowbell in thrash metal, but it appears as a transition point to the guitar solo and tempo change. But are there any other notes you made about For Dear Life, Andy, that you just want to add for its impact as an opener?
Not really, other than for me, as it was an introduction to the band, I was quite taken aback as to how different it did sound. It wasn't mid-80s Anthrax riffs. It did sound different to me, and I always imagined Prong not being in that sort of thrash basket, so I put it down as one of my favourite tracks because it was this is something a little bit different for me as a sort of new listener to the band and the music. So yes, I still stand by it as one of the better ones. It's a strong opener.
What do you think, Andy, of the closing track? Now, the CD version has a track number 11 with a cover of that US post-punk neo-industrial band Prong, but that wasn't on. It was on my CD that I bought, but it isn't officially listed as track 11 on the streaming platforms as the final track. It actually should be the song Just the Same. Should we agree to have that as our thoughts on the final?
Yeah, we shouldn't be talking about a cover song.
Exactly, yeah.
So let's talk about Just the Same as the
Andy,
closer.
Yeah, what have you got for Just the Same?
Well, on the Spotify version, it's a live track, which was decent as well. But I've got Just the Same as being the closing track. I've mentioned the different vocal deliveries sort of throughout my conversation. Again, it sounds as if he's employing a slightly different way of vocalising the lyrics. It's a fast tempo track, so it's there's that for it. And at 3:30, there's a really manic solo. There's a cool outro, I think, to the song as well, which I think they should have extended and made better use of. So it's up there as one of the better tracks on the album and a good way to finish. But that's my thoughts on it.
Did it keep you interested, Dave? Are you still on board?
Yeah, I actually didn't mind this track. There was almost a little bit of a funk in the guitar melody, which I thought was good. It was a bit different to everything else on the album, so it was the first time the guitars didn't feel like they were going down the thrash route. Again, this was one of the songs that really reminded me of Biohazard's Urban Discipline. Again, I know Urban Discipline came out after this, but Urban Discipline was better than this. And now Urban Discipline is one of my favourite Biohazard albums. It's a phenomenal album. But that album is everything this song wants to be in a way. It's got the elements. It's just not quite there. And that's one of the things I would say about everything on this album. It's good. It's just not quite there. It's almost like they've got 80% of the song right, and then they haven't spent that 20% of the time really fine-tuning it, like spending 6 months with the songs and thinking about how they flow. Because there's points where you go, that bit's too long, and that's what I felt with that song. It's like it's got some really cool things, but it could just do with that polish, just to kind of really make it stand out. But the ideas are there, were good, and with Just the Same, I felt that there was some good ideas in there. It didn't quite stand out, but it was a good way to finish the album.
Yeah, I think it's a strong ending. I can understand why they've ended it with this song because of its killer funk metal riff. You're right. It's not like any other riff on there. And there's a real cool bass groove. in there from Mike Kirkland as well. Yeah, it does evolve into a darker affair, doesn't it? With the use of lingering power chords, a bit like what Metallica do a year later with Wherever I May Roam. We just let the power chords linger, and then your voice can take you through to the next section. Really impressive. The chorus is longer than normal, isn't it? But it feels it's just so they can end it with the chant of Just the Same. But the extending this chorus just so they can get that phrase in there, which I don't know what came first, the song title or that lyric. But on a musical level, there's some really ambitious tempo changes here, not least in that rendition of the chorus where they accelerate. Andy, you're talking about that part where it turns into a fast hardcore or crossover thrash song with all instruments at full throttle. It's like Metallica jamming with Cro-Mags, isn't it? It's really a lot of steel behind it. But again, really gritty as well. So I agree, they should have extended that. I know it's already nearly 5 minutes. They could have gone for another 30 seconds with that, where he's double timing the drums and Tommy's just singing even faster. But yeah, I think it's quite a strong one. We have talked a lot about the musicianship. I mean, the consensus is it that certainly the guitar playing, to me, this is a rhythm guitar masterpiece. Is there anything, Dave, you want to add about the musicianship to this record? Maybe the bass doesn't get enough credit? Is it not really there in the mix enough?
That's one of the things I've got, is that the bass, knowing the bass that's on Cleansing and the sound that you get from the bass, I felt the bass was very subtle in the album as far as the mix. It sits there far too easily behind the guitar and doesn't really take its place. The guitar's trying to fill too much of that. So luckily, as you get onto later albums, that bass has its own position. Yeah. And as a free piece, bass really needs to have a bit more prominence. That's purely from a production point of view. The only thing I'll say about this whole album is it's almost like it's an almost there album for me, from a production point of view. I would have loved this band to have spent another 6 months, but it's we've also said before, like, certain albums are sacrificial albums. You need them there to get to the next stage. Because if they hadn't done this album, and let's say they went on and did the next, instead of writing all this, they went off and tried to write 1994's Cleansing album, even though there's another one before this, but you wouldn't have got 1994's Cleansing without having done the albums before it. You need to know that songwriting journey. And you can see that on this album. You can see the songwriting journey. But every song, there is points I can point out in every single song going. A good example would be Prime Cut, which none of us have mentioned at all. But because you've got this bass groove, but it just takes so long to get to the verse that by the time you get to the verse, I'm bored out of my mind and I've lost interest in the song.
Even by the drum beat. Dun, 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 dun,
it's good when it
like
starts. After a while, you're like, "Come on, just get to the bloody song. Get to something a bit more interesting." And there's things like that. If they'd just shortened that and got to the verse a bit interesting, it felt a bit directionless. It felt a bit one-dimensional, that track. So I was like, they needed to sit with this album for longer before releasing it. And I think if they'd sat with it for another 6 months, I reckon some of these tracks would have gone shorter. Some of the sections would have changed. Maybe some of the barking vocals might have been different. But they have a timeline to get an album out, so that's what happens. But it's a sacrificial album. You need it to get to the latter albums, which we now know are classic albums.
Yeah, Andy, some of this surprised you, didn't it? Because you didn't really know, are they a thrash band? Is it going to sound like Megadeth? Is it going to sound like Cro-Mags? Is it perhaps the drums, do you think, that might be giving it a different spin to what else is coming out in 1990?
I wouldn't say that, but the drums, we're talking about production. I think there is really good instrument separation. The drums do sound really, really good. I mean, I doing reviews back to back with the Motorhead one, which is also on the channel. This is a world apart in production value. This is so much better. Dave, you mentioned the bass. Yes, it is hidden in the mix the majority of the time, but it does sort of come through on Lost and Found, I thought, as well. But yeah, there's nothing really to add on the production side of things.
Yeah, I love the production on this record. Incidentally, you're saying there's an album between this and 1994's Cleansing. The one that comes out a year later, Prove You Wrong, it's got side B is quite weak on that. It's like a poor man's Beg to Differ. but they are transitioning. You're getting a bit more groove funk in there, like Faith No More. But yeah, to me, this is the high point. Production, love it. The guitar tone. Even now, if someone said, Kirk, we're going to lock you in a room, you have to relearn how to play guitar, here's a digital 8-track, write a thrash album, I'd just be going to this and Holy Wars, and Rust in Peace, and like, how can I get something like this? If Rust in Peace by Megadeth, which comes out in the same year, had the same guitar tone as this, it would be even better than Master of Puppets. There's so much I love about this album. So I think this is one of the few times where it's difficult to answer. What is stronger, side A or side B? Dave?
Side A.
Okay, maybe not.
There you go.
That's enough.
Well, no, the reason I'd say there are songs on side A that I'm not, or part A I'm not a big fan of. So weirdly, Lost and Found is I think is one of the weakest ones on side A for me personally. I found it too repetitive. But when I get to side B and I go, well, I wouldn't listen to Prime Cut again. Right to Nothing is a generic rocker. Instrumental is just an instrumental track that's got nothing to it. So really, there's only a couple of songs on side B that I'd actually listen to again. So that's purely why side A is a stronger side for me.
Andy, what would you go for if this was a vinyl record and you can only listen to one side?
One isn't head and shoulders above the other. There's decent tracks on throughout the album. There are some weak points as we've discussed. But I'm gonna go with side A because it's got, for me, two of my favourite songs, and the rest. I mean, I like Steady Decline. I think somebody mentioned use this as an example of the title being chanted in the chorus, but gang vocals. So I actually like that element. That's the Biohazard hardcore kind of feel. So, is Your Fear on side A? Would you think?
Yeah, it is. It's track number 5 on side A. Yeah,
I've just got something to add about that. Dave, you sort of mentioned it was it one of your favourites?
Yeah.
Yeah. I've got it. It's got like that haunting sort of opening sort of feel to it.
Again, like
a different sort of vocal vibe. Killing Joke was mentioned. Not a band I've ever heard a note of, so I can't really comment on what they sound like. But are they sort of punk in origin?
Yeah.
The reason I say that is because I got from Your Fear at times an album neither you probably know, but Adam the Ant's first or debut album is called Dirk Wears White Socks. That's so different from Prince Charming and what they're known as later on. So it had that kind of sort of UK late 70s sort of punk feel to me, that particular track. But yeah, side A is the stronger for me. Yeah,
I concur. Side A. I mean, one day we're going to get an album and we might get a unanimous decision that side B is stronger. I somehow doubt that though. It's got the title track, which is the lead single. I agree, Dave. I think actually Lost and Found, I don't see that as a classic from Prong. Yeah, Headbangers Ball uses a snippet of it as its theme tune for most of the early 90s on MTV. So
really, okay.
All the songs, why not choose Take It in Hand or Steady Decline if you can have the riff to the theme tune? Side A, I agree. Your Fear is quite a... There's darkness there, isn't there? It's very introspective. Again, you don't really get that in thrash metal, other than Megadeth writing, that great song from the 1987 album, In My Darkest Hour. There is no introspection in thrash metal. And that's probably why, Andy, you're thinking this isn't a thrash metal, because that's yet another feature which you do not expect. But yeah, track number 2, I've put it in the intro video. You can hear the influence on the likes of Korn and Stuck Mojo from Prong, even as early as 1990, and then Cleansing. My God, how many hardcore bands end up ripping off Prong in the 90s because of, I would say, this album, Prove You Wrong, because of the good tracks on that, and then Cleansing. So yeah, its influence is underappreciated, I would say, but it has been noted, and they do get credit. They just didn't have the commercial success of some of those other bands, including Biohazard, who were very successful, weren't they, with that 1992 album? So yeah, I would say side A is the strongest. So let's go to the verdict. I think I'll go last then because I chose it and I'm likely to have the highest score. Andy, let's start with you. Give us your summary and what your score is out of 10.
I was pleasantly surprised. Yeah, I was pleasantly surprised. I think I inferred it earlier that you know, when I sort of saw it was Prong and the band on, you know, yet another new one I've got to really sort of dig into and try and find some positives. Like, there are lots of positives, some really good tracks, and it is one I'm going to keep on the playlist and listen to again. Cleansing's been mentioned several times. I will go and check out as well and sort of, you know, do a compare and contrast. So yeah, I enjoyed listening to this and reviewing it as an introduction to Prong. And I'm going to go with a score of 6.5.
Okay, yeah. Dave?
So there's 10 tracks on this album. There are only 4 that I will ever listen to again.
Shit, using mathematics.
However, they also get a bonus point because of purely for the fact it's Prong, and there are some interesting parts. Although the other songs on the album, I wouldn't listen to. There are some interesting elements that take it further. So it's a 5 out of 10 for me. What I will be really interested is if for what the elements that Andy really likes on this album, I don't think Andy will like Cleansing.
No.
Because it doesn't. It's not. I mean, as I said, Beg to Differ is probably the closest to earlier parts of what you get on Cleansing. And I don't remember much thrash stuff being in the Cleansing album, from my recollection. But yeah, I would be interested to see if it is something you like, if it's a grower. But for me, I don't even think this album stands up to today's standard. We usually do talk about that, and it's funny you said you love the guitar. If this guitar tone was on Rust in Peace album, I wouldn't like Rust in Peace album. I think the tone on Rust in Peace is better than this. I think this sounds thin, and I think it sounds too raw, the production on this. So I don't think this stands up. I don't even think it even stands up very well for 1990, in my opinion.
Interesting. So 5 out of 10, 6.5 from Andy. Before I give you my verdict, and then
it's going to be an 8 out of 10. You know it's going to be an 8 out of 10.
I'm going to go in as it stood the test of time. This is the first groove metal album. It comes out, I think, 4 months before Pantera's Cowboys from Hell. Completely different idea of groove as well, and it's not a competition, is it? And even that band Exorder are friends with Pantera. You know, the people were claiming there was a beef between those two bands because Pantera stole the groove metal sound. So I'm just going to go in and say they didn't. Prong created it. This album was inducted into the Decibel Magazine Hall of Fame in 2017. So in retrospect, it has received plaudits. It is my joint favourite Prong album with, surprise, surprise, 1994's Cleansing. Love the riffing on this. Still wish I could play some of this stuff. I haven't picked up a guitar for 10 years. After 10 months of relearning, trying to get back to grade 5 standard, I'd be wanting to play Steady Decline and take it in hand and trying to riff out on that. So, final verdict from me, because it's such a big album. Love it as a bit of a left field thrash metal record for me. 9 out of 10, and that brings the average to 6.83. So because we love Tommy Victor and the boys so much, surely we've got to round that up to 7, haven't we?
Yeah, we'll round it up for 7.
Yeah.
I'll go with that.
Fantastic record. Let's hope that some of our readers, go out and discover Prong, because they're still underappreciated. Not readers.
There's a lot of great albums. I mean, if you listen to some of the stuff when they did that song "Revenge Best Kurt Served Gold," it's a freaking phenomenal track as well.
Yeah.
But let us know what you think in the comments down below about the albums, and which albums should Andy check out from Prong. Let us know in the comments. Thank you very much for watching. We'll see you on the video sometime very soon. Take care.